Poverty kills people.
We cannot pretend like this does not happen or deny that we need other people to succeed. There's an innate human interdependency that justifies action to address the destructive consequences of poverty.
Poverty-related hardship in no way helps poor people. And if we had no idea what kind of money we made or our social circumstances, we would never allow inequality that does not help everyone. Therefore, we need to address the extreme inequality that causes poverty in ways that benefit the poorest of the poor. Why do we even need a theory of social justice? Let's take a look at some important numbers. In 2011, over 2 billion people lived on less than $2 every day. In the United States alone, over 45 million people are defined as poor by the official poverty measure. Every year, 18 million people die from poverty-related causes. And that means over 270 million poverty-related deaths since the end of the Cold War alone.
This is unacceptable. It is morally sickening. The destructive and often fatal consequences of poverty-related hardship stifle human capability. They strip people of their basic liberties and exclude them from the fabric of society. We need a theory of social justice as robust and persuasive as poverty is pervasive and catastrophic.
We draw upon John Rawls and his theory of justice as fairness in order to make our case. Try to picture a hypothetical scenario in which the Avengers are totally unaware of their superhero status or that they have saved the world countless times over. Captain America has no idea that he is a super soldier, and Iron Man is clueless to the fact that he can fly. Now suppose that, under this so-called veil of ignorance, the Avengers will try to come up with principles of justice with which to establish society. Presumably, our superheroes will consent to the equal distribution of basic liberties, so that all people may enjoy essential freedoms like speech and expression. We assert that they will also consent to the difference principle. The difference principle is an unequal allocation of primary goods so long as this distribution benefits everyone, specifically the least advantaged in society. Because the Avengers will understand the desirable outcomes unequal distribution creates, this will incentivize them to prefer their chances with inequality than without it. Nonetheless, they will still wish to protect against the possibility that, when the veil is lifted, they could be among the least advantaged, and not powerful superheroes. With these considerations in mind, the Avengers, our social contractors in this Rawlsian thought experiment, will adopt the difference principle, essential to why we need to address poverty-related hardship.
Our conception of social justice compels us to address poverty-related hardship by maximizing the life chances of the poorest in society. But what makes it so persuasive?
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
First and foremost, our thought experiment yields a theory of social justice that is in fact fair. Its principles are the result of a fair agreement or bargain, arrived at through voluntary consent. The social contractors under the veil of ignorance, the Avengers in our example, settle on principles of justice free from coercion or intimidation. More importantly, they come to this decision without any personal biases. In this so-called original position, the contractors only share their ability to reason and a sense of what might constitute justice. No one is able to support principles to favor her particular societal circumstances.
Why do we need this kind of even playing field? Simply put, people are more likely to support theories of justice that support their current place in society, be it as a corporate CEO or a poor urban tenant. Donald Trump, for instance, will probably not approve of an ethical theory that calls for him to sacrifice most of his real estate fortune to help the poor, primarily because this would not be in his self-interest. His societal status as a billionaire keeps him from endorsing principles of justice that, under the veil of ignorance, he would most likely agree to.
Our conception of social justice is also highly persuasive because its principles ensure that everyone in society benefits. The commonly referenced principle of utility according to which people act to promote the greatest satisfaction of preferences, may necessitate that some, even those who are less fortunate, should forego advantages for the sake of the greater good of all people. This would certainly be an extreme demand. It asks that people care far more about the welfare of others than their own life prospects.
Utilitarianism is therefore threatened with instability unless extraordinary, maybe impossible, sympathy and kind-heartedness can be intensely fostered in most people. Our conception of social justice, however, does not require the difficult personal sacrifice utilitarianism demands.
Instead, when the two principles of justice are satisfied, each person's basic liberties are secure, and everyone is benefited by social cooperation. People will therefore be more supportive of our conception of social justice and more likely to uphold its principles.
Hold on. I have a few problems with how we just described our duty to alleviate poverty.
Here's where the fun begins.
I think that the original position is deceivingly warped in order to yield a specific conception of social justice. We talked about how the contractors in the original position only have the ability to practically reason and a sense of what might constitute justice. But this extremely limited conception of the human person strips what it means to be human in the first place. It conveniently deprives the barely human contractors of wants and desires. Take, for example, the gambler, who is ready to risk it all. She would be more likely to accept inequalities that only benefit the rich in the hope that she will have lots of money when the veil is lifted. Rawls assumes that his contractors are risk-averse shades of real people, and I just don't think that we can conceptualize actual people like this. We can hardly know what a person would be like if we had no clue about her personality or what she valued. To assume what lifeless humans completely unlike us will agree to seems presumptuous, and quite frankly, a bit ridiculous.
I see what you mean, Bob, but your objection doesn't undermine the ethical weight of the principles derived from the original position. You criticize our thought experiment, and while it is certainly difficult to imagine the social contractors as real people, your objection does not cut at the heart of the principles we've discussed. Even if we can't predict what principles the contractors will agree to, the equal distribution of basic liberties and the difference principle still seem reasonable. Furthermore, because people aware of their societal circumstances and natural abilities perpetuate poverty, it makes sense to hypothetically strip the contractors of what human characteristics potentially foster injustice. In order to determine what principles of justice we ought to adopt, we may have to strip down our understanding of human existence to its minimum and potentially inconceivable qualities.
I can see where you're coming from, Zach, but I have another important question. What the hell will our theory of social justice mean in real life? Seems to me like it could lead to unattractive practical consequences that take from me what is lawfully mine. The difference principle probably means that we heavily tax the rich in order to support a robust welfare state. For some philosophers like Robert Nozick, this kind of coercive taxation is akin to slavery. And I think Nozick makes an important point. Taxation violates people's rights by stripping them of what they've earned through just transactions. Carmelo Anthony, for instance, has every right to benefit from his height and inherent basketball skills. If he capitalizes on his athletic ability to become a talented basketball player, it seems like he should be able to do what he pleases with what people pay him to watch him net threes for the Knicks, am I right? I mean, in the end, my objection raises a larger question about how we are to interpret basic liberties, like the right to personal property, that are widely agreed upon when grappling with our theory of social justice.
Bob, you're practically ignoring the crucial roles institutions and individuals play in helping the inherently gifted prosper. While Carmelo Anthony ought to benefit from his basketball skills in a way that permits him to acquire more money than others, he still has a duty to do his fair share to help alleviate poverty-related hardship. Melo may have worked diligently to develop his three-point shot, but he never would have had the opportunity to play for a professional team had it not been for the existence of a professional basketball league, government subsidies to build Madison Square Garden, and his coaches and trainers. Some of what he has earned, regardless of how he feels about the matter, should be transferred to help the plight of the poorest in society, because societal circumstances out of his control helped make him successful. The destructive inequality in our world today that contributes to poverty-related hardship stifles the prospects of the poorest of the poor. Poverty tears at the fabric of individual lives and closes doors often open for the affluent in society. In some instances, it can even kill. An equal distribution of basic liberties and the difference principle, both derived from John Rawls' Justice is Fairness, call for a massive overhaul of the current economic and institutional order. They necessitate that we maximize the life chances of the poorest in society, because this is just. These principles are arrived at in a manner that has been shown to be fair. They do not require the kind of personal sacrifice utilitarianism demands. Even if these hypothetical persons are difficult to conceive in the abstract, that doesn't make our principles irrelevant or even unpersuasive. Finally, our conception of social justice does not violate the right to personal property, but justifiably limits what one can do with what one owns.
We live in a social world in which the life prospects of all people are naturally intertwined. We need to appreciate this and adopt our theory of social justice in our ceaseless effort to address poverty